Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Greg Shooner.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak for just a few minutes before all of these awards are presented. And I'd like to thank Captain Compton for the invite to speak. It really is an honor. Thank you. My wife and I have been attending this meeting, on behalf of our association for the last 10 years or so. And over that time, I must say we have met some truly outstanding, skilled, and talented midshipmen and officer candidates of the Gamecock Battalion. And a list of the speakers over that time would consist of some very accomplished military men and women who came here to share their insights, their expertise, and their experience. Well, apparently this year, in an effort to maybe shake things up a bit, it was thought that rather than a strictly military point of view, that of a historian might be of some interest. Well, the association that I mentioned is that of a World War II fighting ship, the USS Columbia CL-56. Members of that crew formed the group back in 1984. They had resolved to preserve the memory of the ship, their time aboard her, and her wartime history. They set to work almost immediately building the beautiful monument to the USS Columbia that stands just a few miles from here over in Memorial Park. I might recommend that if on a warm, sunny afternoon you happen to find yourself over on that side of town, maybe stop just for a minute, have a seat, and spare a thought for the men of the Columbia and their 60 shipmates who never made it home. The monument stands as a testament not only to the Columbia men, but to their knowledge of their firm place in history and the pride that they have in that. Now, during my involvement with this group over the last 20 years, I've learned many things from the very last of the shipmates of this vessel. Solid, quality things that I will never forget. You see, when you're around living history, you learn to listen, and words become very important. And today I'd like to talk about a word that always did seem increasingly important to the men of the Columbia, and it is occasionally to a historian, but I really don't think that most people in their day-to-day lives give it much thought. That word is legacy. Now, every person in this room will leave behind some form of a legacy, something that we hand down to the future. Now, to shamelessly borrow a line from Hollywood, this was in the movie Gladiator. What we do in life echoes in eternity. Does this mean that we must be destined for heroics and fame? Well, probably not. Not many actually make it into the history books. But through your training, you have all become familiar with the potential that you hold within. The potential to create a lasting legacy and a story that is uniquely your own. You've been trained in leadership, in tactical preparedness, taught to enhance your critical thinking and your decision making under pressure, and to be able to readily assess what in some cases is going to be a rapidly deteriorating situation, and to make effective but occasionally difficult decisions. Now, a quick story from Columbia's history might help to illustrate this. January 6, 1945, this is taken from the war record of the USS Columbia based on its ship's log entries. At 17:29, we commenced firing with all weapons at a Japanese bomber diving at our superstructure from off our starboard bow. This plane was seen to be hit by 40mm fire in its right wing, which caused the plane to swerve to starboard, missing the bridge. As the plane passed down our port side, it suddenly dove and crashed into the main deck on the port side of turret number 4. The plane, its engine, and its pilot penetrated through the main deck, and the 800-kilogram bomb it carried penetrated the second and third decks before exploding. All power, including steering control, was lost aft. And the magazines in the vicinity of turrets 3 and 4 were immediately flooded. And it is believed that this action, coupled with the seawater being admitted through 6 holes in the hull, is all that saved the ship from total destruction from a magazine explosion. Well, the captain at the time was Captain Maurice Kurtz, who incidentally, later in his career, made Rear Admiral, and then Admiral, and then added 4 stars to that to serve as Commander-in-Chief of the entire U.S. Pacific Fleet. But on this day, his ability to make rapid, clear, but difficult decisions served him well. Now, back in 1941, as a commander, Kurtz had been on staff as a communication officer to Admiral Kimmel, who himself was the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, at Pearl Harbor on December 7th. Being there, Kurtz witnessed firsthand just how devastating a magazine explosion could be, with the almost instantaneous demise of the USS Arizona. So now, realizing his situation, within seconds of this attack, he ordered all the endangered compartments battened down, sealed, and flooded, and certainly saved his ship and the nearly 1,300 souls aboard her. But this decision was made with his full knowledge of the fact that 17 of his crewmen would be entombed, sealed into those flooding compartments with no hope of survival. This is part of Columbia's legacy, her story, as well as that of the captain and the 17 men whose sacrifice made it possible for me to stand before you today. Now, decision-making will definitely be part of your story as well, and make no mistake, your story will be noted. I understand today, right now, at this minute, you're not giving that much thought. You're busy, you live your life, do your job, perform your duty, and maybe enjoy a beer or two along the way. I'm sure that my father, at just 20 years old, serving aboard the Columbia in the South Pacific, never for a moment gave his legacy a passing thought. Like most of the others who found themselves in that situation, he missed his family. He had a girl back home. But he had a job to focus on and a duty to fulfill. But his story was being written. Now, little did he dream that 10 short years later, he would be having his 5th of 10 children. And that a full 70 years after that, that little boy would find himself standing in front of a room full of future officers in the greatest military in the world, expounding on the idea and the importance of legacy. Time does indeed march on, and the ripple effect of our story, our actions, travel with it. Now, as for history, I remember well the feeling after 9/11/2001. In light of an unprovoked attack on our country in which 3,000 people lost their lives. For weeks, people spoke in hushed tones, and an overall sense of shock prevailed. Well, I know that in December of 1941, those same feelings were everywhere. We had been attacked at Pearl Harbor, killing 2,400 and wounding another 1,000. And in the same disbelief and shock and anger, the whole country wondered, what now? Well, as history would have it, just 10 days later, on December the 17th, in Camden, New Jersey, at the New York Shipbuilding Corporation, a full 5,000 miles from where the smoke still swirled over the wreckage of Pearl Harbor, a brand new ship with an all-new design was christened and slid down the ways into the Delaware River. The second 27 Cleveland-class light cruisers was on her way, the USS Columbia. Now, during World War II, not one of these 27 light cruisers was lost. That's a record that was not matched by any other individual class of Navy vessel. The USS Columbia CL-56, named for this very city, Columbia, South Carolina, was nicknamed the Gem of the Ocean while under construction. This was quickly shortened to simply the Gem by her crew. She was 610 feet of steel and aluminum, with nearly 1,300 officers, sailors, and Marines. Her contributions in World War II are now a part of naval history. She earned 10 battle stars, 2 Navy Unit Commendation Awards, while bringing down 27 enemy aircraft and assisting in the sinking 2 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and 2 battleships of the Japanese Imperial Navy. With her 4 brand new steam turbines, she turned out 100,000 horsepower and could do 32.5 knots. She was well armored and very well armed, boasting 13 Oerlikon 20mm anti-aircraft guns, 16 Bofors 40mm guns and quad mounts, 12 5-inch 38 caliber multi-purpose guns and dual mounts, and a main battery of 12 6-inch 47 caliber guns and 4 3-gun turrets. Over the years, I've had conversations with other students of World War II naval ordnance. And often I'll get a comment something like, really, those light cruisers, a 6-inch gun, that really was kind of a pea shooter compared to a battleship. Well, indeed, as many of you may know, battleships at the time carried a 14 or a 16-inch gun. Now, a 16-inch 45 caliber single round stood 5 feet 5 inches tall, could weigh 2,700 pounds. This massive thing could hit a target 23 miles away, propelled by 660 pounds of powder and fired through a barrel 67 feet long at a rate of between 1 and 2 per minute. Now, today, of course, that's considered some pretty old school firepower. But anyone who over the years had ever witnessed a battleship in battle or on a bombardment mission fire a full 12-gun salvo never forgot it. It is an awe-inspiring experience. But the great advantage of the 6-inch guns is their ability to be rapid fired, accurately putting ordnance on a target up to 15 miles away at a pace few other ships could match. During the Battle of Leyte Gulf, in the night action at Surigao Strait, the Columbia alone accounted for an incredible 1,147 armor-piercing rounds fired from her main battery in just 18 minutes. This meant that she was dispatching a full 12-gun salvo every 12 seconds, a rate of fire not matched by any other ship in this action. Now, her target that night was the battleship Yamashiro, which eventually succumbed to the withering fire from the Gem, as well as the full battle line of Admiral Jesse Oldendorf's force, which had capped the teeth of the oncoming Japanese column. The battle ended in a rout, with enemy losses of 2 of their prized battleships and 3 destroyers. Now, after the war, he was being interviewed. Admiral Oldendorf was asked about the battle and about the early reconnaissance that he had gotten, which detailed the strength and the position of the two enemy forces that were headed his way. Admiral Oldendorf, answering the interviewer himself, he quoted a movie. This went back in 1941. He said, "My thought was to never give a sucker an even break." Well, he did not. Now, sitting here in this room today, we can only try to imagine what 1,147 6-inch rounds being fired in just 18 minutes might have sounded like. Well, Fletcher Pratt, a naval historian and author, wrote of another of the GEM's actions, the Battle of Empress Augusta Bay. And he said, "No one who had not actually been there can form any conception of the sound that beats around the upper works of a light cruiser in action. It is like being hit repeated blows on the head with a hammer. Men grimace. Even a battleship is not so bad. The sounds are deeper and slower." Well, having spent nearly 20 years with the shipmates of the Columbia, I can only attest to the fact that very many of them had a hearing aid by the time they were 40. Some before that. Legacy. The legacy of decision. The legacy of action. Your decisions and your actions will be a part of the ongoing history of this nation. Now, it's easy to feel like a small and insignificant cog in a huge machine. We all at times do. But your time will be a time of a job well done and duties fulfilled. Your legacy is not entirely in the ribbons on your rack. Those will come with the history and the performance of your career. Just as a ship is just so much empty steel without a living and breathing crew, your legacy will only be written through your interactions with those around you. Now, you will advance through a humble ambition, through the deeds and actions, without pretension, of your everyday lives, and lives that from this time forward are lives spent in the service of others. I've often felt that as we move and travel through life, very much like a ship at sea, we leave behind us a wake. In that wake is every word, every action, every thought, every decision, every success and every failure, every error in judgment, and every mistake that we've ever made, along with every relationship that we've ever had. I occasionally glance back at my own wake, and I gotta admit, I cringe a little bit at some of what I see there. We all have moments in life that we'd rather forget, but they float right there, along with the moments of courage, strength, and integrity that help to form in you a sense of pride and self-confidence. But always remember, that wake is behind us. It does not exist to be dwelt on, to nag and perplex us, but simply to teach, to open our eyes to the course that we are on, and to aid in that navigation. Now, from my perspective, which is rather from the outside looking in, I can see that the armed forces of the United States are in good, capable hands. That the responsibility, the burden that you have accepted to provide for the defense and well-being of this nation is a duty that you will perform diligence, vigilance, and prudence. Ladies and gentlemen, may your legacy echo through time. Congratulations to you all, and good luck. And thank you. Thank you.